And Houston, copied. All right, Cygnus PCS command checkout was successful. Begin monitoring approach from 250 meters per step 5 and 1.102. And on top of that, Cygnus is inside the 200-meter keep-out sphere. Crew now has the authority to issue an abort if no comm with MCCH, and the light is outside the corridor.
And we copy. Thanks, Rebecca.
Live on your screen now is a view from Mission Control Houston. That is Flight Director Chloe Mering, closest. And then in the foreground, we have Capcom Rebecca Titman, who you just heard communicating with the crew.
Light is inside the circle, and the circle is offset from the center of the corridor by 1 vehicle width. To the starboard. And for monitor 3, all the same.
Houston copies. Thank you, Josh.
Cygnus is now within 150 meters of the International Space Station.
Houston Station on 2, no change to Block Bravo for monitors 1 and 3.
Houston copies.
Cygnus is continuing to make its approach, now 120 meters away from the International Space Station. We're in another brief but expected hold of communication satellites. You're getting a live view of Mission Control Houston. Cygnus is continuing to make its approach, going towards that 30-meter hold point, at which point it will stop, and the control rooms in Dulles, here in Houston, and the astronauts aboard the International Space Station will give a go, no-go, see if they're ready for capture. Cygnus is going to continue to move to its capture point about 10 or 11 meters away from the International Space Station, where it'll be grabbed by NASA astronaut Nicole Mann using the robotics workstation in the cupola. She'll use the Canadarm2 to grab onto the grapple fixture of Cygnus. At the end of the Canadarm2 is what you may hear referred to as the lee, or the latching end effector, which is basically the hand of the arm. Inside are latches and snares that can grab onto and capture today's target. The latching end effector does have a camera, so we may get views from the robotic arm itself when Cygnus gets a little bit closer.
Station Houston on 2 with an updated T2 exercise constraint.
Go ahead, Rebecca.
Hey, Josh. We just noticed that the no T2 exercise constraint on the crew bands at 10:10 is not reflected correctly on your timeline. It should extend all the way in between those two no exercise blocks. So it should extend all the way until you hit the no exercise at 11:40. So no T2 at all in that time frame.
Okay, we copy and we pass the word. Thank you.
The view you're seeing now is from inside the cupola of the International Space Station. This is the interface that NASA astronauts Nicole Mann and Josh Cassada, monitoring today's operation, are seeing as well. So even though we're in an orbital nighttime and it's difficult to see Cygnus, they still have all the data available to them. To make some sense of the numbers that you're seeing, if you look on the right-hand side of your screen, the bottom set of numbers says VV to ISS, as well as the range rate. We're about 88. That means Cygnus is 88 meters away from the International Space Station and closing in.
Houston station on 2 for Block Bravo. Monitor 1, the light is inside the corridor. Vehicle size is still too dark to measure. The light is inside the circle, but just on the edge, on the aft edge of the circle. And the circle is offset starboard half a width from the center of the corridor. For monitor 3, all the same except for the light is on the starboard edge of the circle.
Houston copies all.
Cygnus now within 75 meters of the International Space Station.
Houston station on 2 for Block Bravo update. The only change here is monitor 1. The aft light is just outside of the circle, aft of the vehicle. And of course, the forward light is inside the circle, so the circle splits the two lights.
Houston copies. That's all nominal.
Cygnus now within 60 meters of the International Space Station, heading to its 30-meter hold point.
Houston Station on 2 at 50 meters, no updates to the block Bravos. They remain unchanged.
Houston copies.
Cygnus is now 45 meters away from the International Space Station as the station is flying over Michigan. Again, we're going towards that 30-meter hold point. It's a live view of the Cygnus cargo spacecraft on your screen now. It's hard to see as we're in an orbital nighttime. We're about 3 minutes away from a sunrise. Now just over 35 meters away from the International Space Station. That city down below you see, the International Space Station is crossing over Maryland, headed over Delaware.
Houston Station on 2 for monitor 3, block Bravo. The light is inside the corridor. The vehicle size matches the outline, and the light is just starboard of the circle, and the circle is centered in the corridor. And monitor 1 right now, just a little too focused of the light itself, but vehicle matches the outline.
Houston copies. And Station Houston on 2, confirm 30-meter hold and set up for capture for step 6 and 1.102.
Houston copies, picking up in step 6. Houston Station for step 6, we confirm that the mode is hold and primary range is 30.32.
All right, Houston copies.
Cygnus has reached its 30-meter hold point. You can see the astronaut zooming in to allow flight controllers to get a better look of the Cygnus cargo spacecraft. You can see the top solar array is deployed, while the bottom one is in a partially staged configuration, partially deployed. Teams in mission control are going through a go, no-go poll to proceed through the 30-minute hold point now.
Houston Station on 2, third round of photos on SSC 11 again.
All right, great. Thanks, Josh. And for your awareness, we couldn't see the second round, but we'll take another look now that you've got this third round out there.
Okay, copy. Description that I put in there was NG18, and then for the second round, NG18-2, and then the third one, NG18-3.
All right, we copy.
We're now moving into an orbital daytime, and now that the astronauts are getting a good look at Cygnus, now that it's stopped at its 30-meter hold point, NASA astronaut Josh Cassada is working with the ground on some imagery to get a better idea of what's going on with the Cygnus cargo spacecraft. It's performing nominally so far. They just want to understand a little bit more about the solar array that is partially deployed. That would be the one on the bottom of the screen. Here at the 30-meter hold point, Mission Control Houston going over roles and responsibilities in the unlikely event of the contingency, who would do what and at what point. Meanwhile, Cygnus is still at its 30-minute hold, and teams will do a go, no-go poll to proceed. We are now within 20 minutes of our estimated capture time. After this 30-meter hold point, Cygnus will be expected to inch closer to the International Space Station, stopping at its capture point. This won't be at 0 meters away, but rather 10 to 11, which gives NASA astronaut Nicole Mann enough room to capture Cygnus using the robotic arm. Inside that spacecraft that you see on your screen now is 8,200 pounds of cargo making its way to the International Space Station. This includes fresh fruits and veggies and holiday treats for the crew, but more importantly, has scientific experiments and hardware going up for future spacewalks to install the IROSA rollout solar arrays. Specifically, we've got the mod kit for the 1B power channel. This is not a typical configuration for Cygnus. You see the topmost solar array fully deployed. The bottom one that you see on your screen is only partially deployed. The Ultraflex solar arrays did not fan out on that one. That's why teams want to be extra careful going into this operation, but so far everything is proceeding nominally, and teams are reviewing imagery from NASA astronaut Josh Cassada that he took as the International Space Station was in orbital daytime with the Cygnus cargo spacecraft 30 meters away from the International Space Station.
Station Houston on 2. We're just looking for a status on the capture setup. If you need more time to continue reviewing the cue cards, you're more than welcome to take it.
And station copies. The crew is ready for Cygnus approach to capture point.
And Station Houston on 2, we are not seeing that the SSRMS safing is removed from step 3.1 of 1.110 Cygnus capture.
Thank you very much. Yeah, our review is complete, and we're executing 3.1 now.
Houston copies.
Cygnus is still in its 30-meter hold point, 30 meters away from the International Space Station. The astronauts aboard the station inside the station's cupola are going through their steps.
Houston Station on 2, step 3 is complete and ready for step 4 when we've got to go.
All right, Houston copies. Cygnus is ready to proceed to the capture point. Expect approach to resume shortly.
Station copies.
And we are a go for final approach. Cygnus has begun moving through the 30-meter hold point, heading towards about 10 to 11 meters away from the International Space Station for NASA astronaut Nicole Mann to use the robotic arm to grab onto the grapple fixture on Cygnus. This comes after a go, no-go poll.
Range less than 6 meters.
Station copies and understand step 7, 1.102.
After Cygnus reaches its capture point, again 10 to 11 meters away from the space station, another go, no-go poll will be completed for capture. This is between the astronauts on the space station, Mission Control Houston, and Cygnus's flight control team over in Dulles, Virginia.
Houston Station on 2 for block Bravo. Just a heads up, it's real hard to pick out the white light on either monitor 1 or 3, but the light is definitely inside the corridor and the vehicle matches the outline. And the circle itself is centered within the corridor on both monitors 1 and 3.
Houston copies, nominal report.
Even though Cygnus is heading for its capture point, once it reaches that capture point, it does not automatically mean that astronaut Nicole Mann is going to use the robotic arm to actually capture it. A lot of steps need to be completed in between. For instance, there's that go, no-go poll we just talked about, and they'll also turn off the DSATs. Basically, the astronauts will be inhibiting any thrusters on the station from firing. These are automatic thrusters, and once Cygnus is grappled, they don't want those going off and interrupting this operation. When that happens, you may hear a call from station to the ground saying that DSATs are inhibited. We are now less than 15 meters. We're now less than 15 minutes away from the estimated capture time of the Cygnus cargo spacecraft. However, there's plenty of room within that first capture window and plenty of capture windows after that if necessary. Cygnus is now less than 20 meters away from the International Space Station.
Houston Station on 2 inside of 16 meters and no changes to the block Bravos.
Houston copies.
Cygnus now within 15 meters of the International Space Station. On your screen now you can see the Cygnus cargo spacecraft, and on the left is the Canadarm robotic arm that will be used to capture Cygnus today.
Houston Station on 2. Not sure if you ended up getting the second and third rounds of photos, but just a heads up, that grapple fixture looks solid. It looks great.
Houston copies. We did get those photos, and we concur on the fixture.
Cygnus has reached its capture point and a go-no-go poll is underway.
Station Houston on 2, confirm capture point hold per step 8 and 1.102.
Copies. 8 is complete, and capture conditions are confirmed. The crew is ready for Cygnus capture.
Okay, Josh, and before we proceed, I wanted to give you a status. We are seeing some weather in Guam, and we expect that we might get some ratty calm on this pass that we're on right now. With that said, you are primed for everything, so we are go ahead and stand by for capture.
Copy on the comm, and we're standing by at 4.1.
Station Houston on 2. Go for Cygnus capture sequence, step 4 and 1.110 Cygnus capture. Begin monitoring the backaway cue card.
Station copies. We are go for Cygnus capture.
At 12 meters away from the International Space Station, Cygnus is at its capture point, and the teams of Northrop Grumman and Mission Control Houston have pulled go to proceed with capture. Around the time of capture, you'll hear a call for first stage capture, but it won't be until the snares close around the grapple fixture that we'll relay the official time of capture. So taking a look at your screen here, you'll see a circle towards the bottom of Cygnus, and then a long horizontal bar just on top of that. That long bar is the grappled target. NASA astronaut Nicole Mann is aiming for that line and using it as a guide. They're lining up the arm with that, so just below the fixtures will actually interact with that circular pinwheel shape on the bottom to grab onto Cygnus. And we did hear that the desats are inhibited. Once again, these are fueled thrusters that can autonomously fire if the International Space Station goes outside of its orientation, and we don't want them to go off when the robotic arm grabs onto Cygnus, so these are disabled. Now just under 3 minutes until capture. And we have confirmation that the SSRMS robotic arm on the International Space Station is moving. slowly but surely that SSRMS robotic arm is making its way towards Cygnus, locked onto the grapple target. The arm is 2.5 meters away from Cygnus. One meter away. We have capture and are standing by for snares closed. And these snares have closed. Basically, the hand of the robotic arm has closed its fingers around the grapple fixture. The Cygnus cargo spacecraft supporting Northrop Grumman's 18th Commercial Resupply Services mission was successfully captured at the controls of NASA astronaut Nicole Mann using the station's robotic arm at 4:20 a.m. Central as the International Space Station was flying over the Indian Ocean. Cygnus took a 2-day journey to the International Space Station after its launch. A couple hours after launch, teams were unable to deploy one of the 2 solar arrays, and after much review and analysis, Cygnus was successfully able to be captured by the station's robotic arm at 4:20 a.m. Central, 5:20 a.m. Eastern Time.
We certainly agree with her. That from Leo. The stars do not look bigger, but they certainly look brighter. A huge congratulations to the NG-18 team for their tireless efforts in getting Sally Ride to the ISS and for a successful capture today. You have a go for Cygnus post-capture reconfiguration.
Houston copies all. Excellent work, Duke and Josh, and welcome to the ISS SS Sally Ride. We want to reiterate the heartfelt congratulations to the NG team on behalf of MCC Houston, and we're all very happy to see Cygnus finally captured.
Some kind words there from NASA astronaut Nicole Mann after the successful capture of the Cygnus cargo spacecraft, welcoming the SS Sally Ride to the space station. Next up, robotics officers here on the ground will align Cygnus's common berthing mechanism with the common berthing mechanism on the Earth-facing port of the Unity module and work to bolt it into place. At this point, NASA astronauts Nicole Mann and Josh Cassada are relieved from their duties at the robotic workstation inside the station's cupola and are going to go on about the rest of the tasks for their day. Before Cygnus is berthed to the International Space Station a couple hours from now, the team is going to continue to take some imagery of the Cygnus cargo spacecraft to understand a little bit more about what was going on with that solar array. You're getting a live view of mission control. Teams here, as well as the Northrop Grumman team over in Dulles, Virginia, worked diligently these past 2 days to get the SS Sally Ride to the International Space Station after an unsuccessful solar array deployment by one of the wings. Cygnus was able to be robotically captured at the hands of NASA astronaut Nicole Mann at 4:20 a.m. Central Time, 5:20 a.m. Eastern Time. For now, teams are going to do some checkouts of the Cygnus cargo spacecraft and then turn over controls over to our robotics officer here in Mission Control, who will work to berth Cygnus and install it to the Earth-facing port on the Unity module. We'll be back on with coverage of installation at 6:15 a.m. Central Time. This is Mission Control Houston.